All right, welcome in here, my friends. We got Bridge Colby with us, former senior Trump Pentagon official, Marathon Initiative principal, and just a super smart guy. Yesterday was National Security Day. What's the biggest national security challenge that you see for, let's assume, an incoming Trump administration? I mean, the biggest one that you think needs to get the most attention.
Well, great to be with you guys. It's got to be China, and I think that was underscored in the platform, and we've seen it from both President Trump, Senator Vance, and others. But also, I think the overall, Buck, it would be kind of this injection of common sense America first thinking. Like right now, Joe Biden hands out commitments and new, security obligations like they're candy, and there's no backup, there's no reindustrialization, et cetera. That's kind of the meta point. We got to focus on the biggest challenge to America from abroad, which is China. We got to have the basis to do so, too.
Well, what do we do, though? Like, what's the best way to handle China? Because one thing I do know is that the Trump challenging of China that even the right was a little bit opposed to in 2016 has now at least infused itself somewhat into a bipartisan or more bipartisan view of what the China threat is.
Totally, but my concern is, and I think you see it from the Biden people, it's largely superficial, and that's why it's so important that the platform is emphasizing the reindustrialization. Senator Vance always says, why are we in a position where we're about to fight a war with China and we get all our stuff made in China? Why don't we have our stuff made at home and we don't get in a war with China from a position of peace through strength, as he said. So I think that's the key way, because we got to be able to produce stuff at scale to allow our forces to be so frightening that they don't get challenged, but also that our friends and allies like Israel, Poland, South Korea, India, that they can fight their battles too and we can back them up.
Trump wins. What does it mean to Ukraine, Russia, peace? I know you've been writing about this and what the role is of Europe in that, but also, as you just mentioned, what does it mean in Israel? Do you believe that peace through strength concept will apply? What would you expect to see in the early stages of a Trump foreign policy administration as it pertains to those issues?
Well, look, I don't speak for the campaign, just to emphasize, but I think President Trump's been very clear that he's going to try to make peace, and I fully support that. Obviously, the Ukrainians are going to have to be armed, and I think that's totally right. But as he said in his Truth Social post, and as Senator Vance has said repeatedly, that's got to be on the Europeans. That makes sense. We don't have endless amounts of weapons and money to give away. We got to focus on China. So I think that's a reasonable basis. And I was actually just telling a bunch of German, politicians and elite types earlier today and over the last couple of days. Look, the message is clear. It's what Senator Vance said at the Munich Security Conference, which is you got to step up. Meantime, the German government's actually cutting Ukraine aid. It's not fulfilling its own defense obligations. It's clear as day that the only way this alliance system is going to survive, if you want a strong America, is for our allies to step up. And that's what the Trump-Vance campaign, to me, is saying very clearly. If you want to end America's international role, you follow the Biden approach, which is going to send us right into the iceberg. I think in the case of Israel, we got to back them. I think as both the president and Senator Vance have said, we got to back them and try to get this situation wrapped up. What the Biden people are doing is they put their hands into them, always holding them back, always in their business, and then not providing the support. I think that's got to change, putting pressure and economic sanctions, et cetera, on Iran.
What does a Trump success year one with Ukraine look like? End state, right? He's said, I'll end it. Okay, what does that look like?
Well, look, I think this is typical. President Eisenhower ran 52, Nixon 68, Reagan 80. You don't tell exactly what your playbook is. I think we know what the goal is. We're not expecting peace on earth, flowers popping up but I think it would be great if you could get to at least a ceasefire or something like it. Again, I don't know what he's got planned.
What do you think? What do you think a success would look like?
Well, I think a success where Ukraine is basically well armed, can defend itself. I think what President Trump and Senator Vance have been saying is we got to base this on reality. And you can't say, oh, the Russians are going to disappear, Ukraine's going to get, Crimea back, et cetera. That kind of like wishful thinking combined with weakness is how we got to this place. And I would say, frankly, another thing is avoiding World War III, because I think on this, President Trump's right to emphasize this, the Chinese are preparing for war. If we can get peace in the next year, that would be pretty awesome.
What's the appropriate response for what's going on, as you just mentioned, with China and potentially Taiwan if Trump is in office come January?
Well, look, I think President Trump was right in Bloomberg to say this is a really tough problem. I mean, I think, and this is something I've been trying to communicate to the Taiwanese, they've got to take their self-defense more seriously. They're spending less than the previous percent. They got to spend 10%, and we should have been focusing our resources, as Senator Vance has been saying. Ultimately, that's a presidential decision, but I think it's the obligation of our security establishment and Taiwan to give us the best basis as possible. I think it's a two-track approach, which is real peace through strength. It's strength, focusing our resources and our industrial capability on China so they see the shield, but at the same time an openness to a modus vivendi. And when I hear President Trump saying, I'm open to talks with Xi Jinping, a lot of people criticize him. I'm saying, hey, we want to avoid a war. We got to play both sides of this, toughness, but also an openness to avoid World War III.
Bridge, where can folks go to follow the rest of your work?
You can follow me on Twitter at Elbridge Colby or X, in my book, The Strategy of Denial: American Defense in an Age of Great Power Conflict.
Cool. And if you're Deputy DOD chief, will you give us a cool tour of the Pentagon?
Well, I make no presumptions. That's up to them. I'd be honored to serve.
I'm just
always
throwing it
happy
out
to
there.
talk to you guys.
You know,
always
it's-
happy
you
to.
know,
You
just-
know,
we got
if
a
I'm
few
dog
friends.
catcher, I'll
We know
I'll-
a few people. Just get us in. You know,
DC would be a little bit more fun for us, right? If we got people actually back in
absolutely.
positions
You know,
of power.
I'm just
checking.
happy to support the ticket.
There
Honestly,
we
it's so
go.
exciting.
Yeah, no, it's been a great week for all. Bridge Colby, great to see you, man. Thanks for making the time for us.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Up next, Speaker of the House. We have got Mike Johnson scheduled to swing in and join us. Also, Senator Bill Hagerty. And we mentioned Hulk Hogan is speaking tonight. How about Glenn Jacobs, mayor up in Knoxville? All that and more coming your way. Final hour Thursday.